On behalf of the more than 2,000 service members that have signed the appeal for redress, I'd like to say I'm deeply humbled and honored to be recognized, to have the appeal for redress recognized tonight. And before I introduce my partners, I'd like to take the opportunity to let you know what it means to be mentioned in the same breath as Orlando Letelier and Ronnie Carpin-Moffitt. To me, it means obligation. An obligation of those that live in the belly of the beast. An obligation of those who have the power of proximity. An obligation to our ideals, everyone in this room, to our ideals, but not only to our ideals, but to the Senator Gustavo Petros, to the Orlando Leteliers, to the Ronnie Carpin-Moffitts, to the people of Cuba and Bolivia and Zambia, to the people all over the world that rely on us. Before I introduce my good friend Jonathan, I'd like to thank the esteemed Congresswoman who mentioned the word legitimacy earlier, about while she was extending all of her adulation to the senator from Colombia. I'd like to thank you, Congresswoman, for defending the remaining shreds of legitimacy in our government by selecting to impeach a war criminal, our Vice President, Dick Cheney. So I'm gonna hand the mic off to someone that gives me hope for my generation, someone who keeps the spirit of revolution alive for when my generation is the generation that, our generation is the generation that makes decisions in this world. And I mean a revolution of conscience and a revolution of justice. I like to say that you can tell Jonathan's been somewhere because he leaves a puddle of justice on the ground. So please welcome, warmly welcome. No, make it a hot welcome. Celebrate a soldier, a sailor, a service member, someone who serves justice, Jonathan Hutto.
I promise all of you, we're going to stay within time limit. I promise you. I promise you that. I promise you.
Unless you need it translated into more than one language, and we can stay up longer.
I promise you. I'm going to make this succinct, but also, very strong and to the point. I was off the coast of Iraq in January of 2006 on board the USS Theodore Roosevelt when I received this book in the mail from a professor, a friend of mine at Howard University. It was a book that I had never read, and it's a history that was unknown to me, and I thought that I knew just about all there was about at least Vietnam history coming out of Atlanta, Georgia, Dr. King, Muhammad Ali, Julian Bond, John Lewis. I mean, how could you not? But I did not know that there was a movement of active duty military within the ranks itself during Vietnam. And one of the things that inspired me and inspired all of us was an open petition that they took out. The irony that this book was written by a doctoral student who's sitting before us today, Dr. David Court, right here. Oh, stand up, Bob. Come on. Come on up here with us. Come on. I said we're going to stay within time now. The irony that this book was written by a doctoral student 32 years ago, a student of Mark Raskin at the Institute for Policy Studies. And so 32 years later, this book being an inspiration to us, an open appeal they took out in the New York Times, 1,365 of those active duty GIs during Vietnam. And so what I said to myself, and as I contacted my friend Lindsay, who I knew was in the active duty ranks, and as I met Lim in Norfolk in June of that year when we brought Dr. Courtwright down, is that if they could do that during that time, then what prevents us from trying to do something to give voice and to give purpose and to give meaning to our service? Just because we took an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, does not mean that we've sacrificed our rights under that Constitution. It's because of that, and it's based on the Military Whistleblower Protection Act that gives all of us the right to appeal to members of Congress on our own time, off duty, off base, and without any reprisals for having done so. The result, over 2,000 active duty members of the military have signed from 10 countries all around the world, 85% enlisted, at least 60% of them at least having done one tour of duty in Iraq. But most importantly, setting a stage for us to build a democracy movement within the military. We have seen every element of our society press this government through the ballot box, through the marches, through legislation, through letters, but we got to get the voices of our constituency. And we believe that when those voices move, we'll be able to not only bring the troops home, take care of them when they get here, but also bring justice and bring some respect back to this country, because those violations are committed in our names, all right? Two final points I'll make. One is, and this is picking back off of Eve, we talk about the service members in Iraq constantly, and we should. Those are our brothers and sisters, but also our brothers and sisters not just within the ranks of the military, but throughout the entire world. And so we not only speak about those 3,000+ who have sacrificed their lives and did so honorably because the government asked them to do so. But we also speak for the hundreds and thousands of Iraqi civilians whose communities have been decimated, whose hospitals have been destroyed, whose schools have been destroyed, and whose lives have been turned upside down by illegal, unjust, and immoral war. And finally, with 1 minute remaining, I read these words as a young freshman at Howard, and it was implanted in my head as soon as I read them. A gentleman by the name of George Jackson. I had never heard of George Jackson. And people honored him as the father of the modern-day prison movement. Many of us, some of you before my time, remember the rebellion at Attica that was inspired by his advocacy for prisoners' rights. But when I read those words, anytime I speak, anytime I have anything to say, I end by saying, settle your quarrels, come together, understand the true reality of our situation, understand that fascism is here, that millions have died that could have been saved, and that millions more would die or live half-butchered, poor lives if we fail to act. Do what must be done. Embrace your love and humanity and a worldwide revolution. Join us. Join us and give up your life for the people. Thank you.